Well, hello there, Apple Bites. This is your Apple Bite Raphael Tavares talking to you straight from our show here, The Written Writ, a show where you and I and you take a journey together to become better writers. I know what you're saying. It's 12 noon, Ralph. What are we doing? Well, we're having a nice little lunch book snack. That's what I like to call it. And what better way to have a nice book snack with having our guest Nicoline Evans, who is an amazing author and who's here to talk about her books, and maybe we'll get into a little bit of writing process.
Sounds good. Hello. Happy to be here.
I am so happy that we finally got to have you on the show.
Yes.
We've been trying to work this out. It finally has, and it's good because Kadma talks about your books all the time.
I love her. I love her so much. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Hall of Mosses, and then she read the Eshy series, and yeah, we just have so much fun chatting together, and I love seeing all you guys at the shows. So I'm happy to do this. I was like, we got to find some time that works.
Exactly. And it's so funny that you mentioned that. We got so used to seeing you at most of the shows where we at, it's almost like, you get to that point where, there's certain people you're going to see at certain shows. And it's almost like being a family because you're going to see them. You're going to be like, oh, we're going to go, we're going to talk, we're going to hang out. We'll take a couple of pictures.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that's like one of the nicest parts about the shows, like having done them since 2015. Like I keep going back and then I see like you guys and there's tons of people where it's like, I know my friends are going to stop by and hang out for a little bit. And it's always just nice to see everyone. And then a year without any shows, I'm like, wait, all my people, I don't get to see my people.
That's right. And you've already started hitting the circuit, right? I know you've done 1 or 2 shows already.
Yes. So the last show I did was Chicago, C2E2. So that was right before COVID started. Like that was February 28th to March 1st of 2020. So hold on. Can you hear my dog slurping in the background?
I heard him walking around.
Bubba, come. He just like slurp, slurp, slurp. It's like he's a 140-pound mastiff. So he's very loud. Sorry. So yeah, the last show I did was C2E2 in Chicago, February 28th to March 1st.
Right.
And then literally like while we were at the show, everyone was like, have you heard about this virus? Have you heard about this virus? Like, and it was like right before it happened. So everyone's talking about it and no one's like quite sure what it is yet. And I actually remember it was kind of like this, like this hush hush talk. Everyone's like, it's like, you talk about the books and everyone's like, did you hear? And yeah, it's like, yeah. So then literally, I think the week after I got home, everything shut down. And I was supposed to go to Emerald City in Seattle, Washington the week after. And obviously that got canceled. And actually Seattle got hit worse than New York at first. So that was, but then, yeah. So since then I did a couple summer markets in 2020. So those were outdoors. But then just this past weekend, so I did a Christmas market, I did a couple outdoor markets. And then this past weekend I was up in New Paltz, New York, where I did, again, it was an outdoor market. And it's just kind of nice now with like the mask mandate lifted for vaccinated. It's like really nice that people can feel normal again, and like come out and you can have your mask on or have it off, but it's just like okay, things are starting to feel like we can be together again. So I'm hoping that stays true for all the bigger Comic-Cons as well. So I'm scheduled to go to MegaCon in Orlando in August. So that will be the first. Yeah, I think that's what I've heard. I've heard good things. So that'll be the first big Comic-Con that I return to. So that will be in August.
Nice.
Yeah.
And are you going to be in New York Comic-Con?
Yep. So I'm scheduled to be there. I'm hoping that it happens. I've heard that I think FlameCon in August in New York got turned virtual. So that was not a great sign. So I'm just hoping that maybe because they were in a different venue, they had to. So maybe Javits will be fine. But yeah, I'm scheduled to be at New York, and I'm very, very hopeful that we get to all be there again this year.
From what I'm hearing from New York, it's like they're going to do something different. They're trying to keep it, I guess, healthy. Not so many people. So I want to see how this is going to go because I've heard all these like rumblings, and I'm trying to like go. All right, so you guys are trying to do something here.
Right.
Let's see what you guys do.
Yeah, like on my end, on the vendor end, so far everything's happening, and we haven't heard anything regarding crowd size or. I mean, I don't know how they could possibly spread booths out without losing vendors. I mean, I'm just hoping this whole vaccine thing helps, because if that is enough to, you know, make it that we can just have a normal show, that'd be great. I mean, those crowds, like you know, you're walking like a penguin through. There's so many people.
I'm beginning to see that now, like especially here in New York, as I'm walking through the city. You know, it is a whole different place than it was like a month ago. It's people everywhere, and it's getting really crowded. So I'm like, I believe you that the venues are already getting some crowds going in.
Right. And so I think I mean, hey, like if it's a safe situation, then let's have it like normal. If it's not, then we'll figure something out. I mean, I know like where my booth usually is, it's like a nice, you have all the penguin crowds walking around, you know, and then where I am, it's kind of where like there's other art, like writers, and
exactly,
it's under that small ceiling. So there's nice big crowds, but you get like a little bit more of a trickle. So I'm like, all right, well, I know where I am, I'll be all right. So
it is true, because you only have to worry when it gets really crowded in that area, and that's usually I guess midday or during the end of the day, when people go, hey, what's going on over here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm hopeful it happens, because I miss going to the shows and seeing everyone, and missing a second year would be like, you know.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it gives me more time to get more books done, but you know, but
I have to admit, your booths are always amazing. You always have a lot of room. So, and that, I think that helps out too. And Nat's over here saying the same thing. He goes, you always got the nice corner spots too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always try to get the nice corner spot. And New York Comic Con is just a little bit smaller than my other shows, which is our 10x10s. And then Comic Con, I think it's 6x8, I think. But even so, you know, because of the bookshelf situation, I try to make it like a library or a bookshop, so then people could walk in and like look. So I try to make a little, even before COVID, I like to try to have like a nice little sanctuary.
Well, that's one of the things I liked about your booth. It feels like a little library. It feels like you're coming in, you know, you got this, like, you're in a con and you crowded all over the place, but you enter your booth and it's like, hey, I can breathe here.
Right, exactly. And then and especially with books, it's like sometimes you want to take a second away from the noise and the chaos and like pick up a book and read the back of it and just not be interrupted. So,
exactly.
So especially when I have the 10x10s, you have a lot of space to do that. And yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I know, so Orlando, I'm going to have 10x10. So that'll be the first real test of a Comic-Con again. So I'm excited. It's also a new city for me. I've never brought my books to Orlando before. So
let's get the audience in on this. I want them to, because you have a lot of books.
I have a lot of books, yeah.
You are a prolific writer, and I feel like you keep adding stuff every time I see you.
Yeah, there's new things all the time, and it's funny because, you know, everyone, like during COVID, it's like, oh, everyone's got this uninterrupted time to be productive and to, you know, make new stuff. And I did. In 2020, I released my poetry book. I released the Eschi trilogy. So there's 3 books here, and then I released Where the Gardens Grow, which is my newest children's book. So I did get stuff done. But what's funny is that, like, while that seems like a lot, on the novel end, I think because the world was so distracting, like, you know, there's chaos and division and just lots of stuff going on, that I was constantly feeling compelled to be in tune with what was going on in society, that like when it came to writing the bigger books, I was just so distracted. So I think I've got one book that's in editing and another book that I'm like halfway done writing. So I'm like trying to buckle down and get new stuff for new novels for New York Comic Con and my Christmas shows. But yeah, so currently I have 20 books. 4 of those are children's books and 2 of those are poetry books. And then the rest are big, meaty novels like this one.
Nice. So let's do the rundown. Let's tell the audience all your books, and I love when you do your spiel and you go through each thing that you have. You know, it's one of the best things that I love to do is come by and go, okay, Nicoline, let's do this again. Tell the audience
what you said. Right. All right, go. I can do that for you right now. So Another Isle. This is one of my young adult novels. It's paranormal, about a young boy that moves to a fishing village and gets caught in a mystical world of secrets and magic. So he has to save himself in the town from a paranormal threat he accidentally unleashes. So spooky, magical. I like to tell people it has like a Tim Burton type of vibe, just so they kind of have an idea of like what energy they're getting when they walk into this one. This one also YA. Humans evolve into the elements, earth, fire, water, air, and you follow the main character from the sky on a futuristic Alice in Wonderland-like adventure as she tries to save the world. So this is fun for young adult readers, for all ages, really. My YA novels are very like Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Percy Jackson-ish, where it's like you could be 10, you could be 20, you could be 50, and you can enjoy it. It doesn't really matter what age you are.
Right.
Still in the young adult category, I'll do the YA before I go to adult, is the Hall of Mosses trilogy. So right now they're currently wrapped up in a bow because this is how I have them in my house. But it starts off with Hall of Mosses. Juniper, she thinks the trees are talking to her. So she's like, this is crazy, I'm losing it. But then supernatural things start happening and she realizes that she might not be as crazy as she thought. Book 1. Book 2, Field of Ashes, is the introduction of the bad guys. And then Veil of Fire is where things get a little paranormal. So this series is actually an origin story for this book. I wrote this first and then I went backwards and wrote these, but they can work separately. You don't have to read them in any particular order. And because
I know Cadma's always talking about Hall of Moses and that character, and she's always like, Ralph, you gotta check it out, man.
Yeah, no, she's me and her talked a lot about. So her name's Juniper in this book, and her feedback was just so like it just touched my heart when she did a video and she gave me this beautiful message on Instagram of just like how she felt after reading it. And like as a writer, there's nothing more special than when a reader connects to one of your characters like that, and it just makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing something right. It makes me motivated to keep writing because there's readers out there that will connect with your characters, and it just makes it, I don't know, it's just like a really awesome feeling. So we've talked a lot about that one. And then actually, so while I'm on this series has 7 champion women who represent different elements of nature. So Juniper, she is the champion of the trees. And then throughout the series, you get to meet all the other women. So where did I put those? You'll see on the back of this book, there's the 7 women there. Right. So I decided
I'll put you up.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
So there's the 7 women. So that's, oh gosh, my finger's backwards. So that's Juniper. And then I decided that I'm going to write backstories for every single girl. So I started with Eshi, and that's where this series came in. Eshi, Champion of the Core, which is essentially a champion of fire. So this is her at age 10. This is her at age 10, age 15, and age 18.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So basically then this leads in. So this story here leads into Hall of Mosses. So basically in Hall of Mosses, you're getting to meet all these girls, but you don't get like to know them as well as you get to Juniper. Okay. So I felt like, man, these are such cool characters and they totally deserve their own story. So that's why I'm writing all these. So I'm going to work on Marisabel next. So I would like to have Marisabel done by Comic-Con if possible. So that way I have two of these little trilogy series.
That's a pretty good way to do it. I like that. It's like, well, here's the story. Now we're going to flush it out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I've gotten some feedback since that people who like this story were excited to be like, wow, I did get to know her, but I didn't get to know her, exactly. You know? Mm-hmm. And now I can go back, even though you're not getting to know her in this particular time, this time frame of the story, you get to know who she was before she got here. And it just makes her such a more well-rounded character. And like, you feel more connected to her because now, like I said, you know her now and you know the trials and the way she survived and what she's been through to get to that point. And what makes her a champion, more or less, like how she was chosen by Mother Nature to help save humanity. So that's been exciting. And this story was actually really fun to write because I normally write fantasy stories, and this is still fantasy, but it's very much set in real life scenarios. So so her, she starts off, so she's in Uganda. and her family is outrunning the militia that is recruiting child soldiers.
Mhm.
So you're watching her and her mother and her brothers. They're trying to escape to Kenya, and in the process, obviously it's a fantasy story, so things don't go well, and you watch her survive, and you watch her connection to animals and to fire, and how those things help see her through on this very arduous journey, especially as a young girl, towards surviving.
Right.
And then the rest of the series is a lot of like her reconnecting with family in Kenya, that like, going to school and like persevering despite all she lost in book 1. And just showing how no matter the hardship, she rises above. And then Marisabel, I'm really excited about hers. I have a whole storyline mapped out for her.
Right. Mm-hmm.
She's in Brazil, so I have a pretty cool story that I'm going to have hers similar. It's not about escaping, but it's more about like this journey she goes on with her mother, and a lot of trouble that happens along the way, and she ends up being with her grandmother. I don't want to give it away, but
well, you already have our attention, because that already sounds good there. So
yeah. So basically, I won't, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be about like the trafficking situation that goes over the border. So
right.
And then her survival and how she ends up with her grandmother. But she's the champion of fresh water, so it's going to be a lot of healing through water. So she survives through the healing of water. She tries to help others through the healing of water. So it should be cool. I'm excited to write that one. But first I got to finish the story I'm currently writing. So it's a lot.
Well, it looks like you know where you're going. It's you said it was 7 books, right? 7 stories.
Well, yeah. So each girl, there's going to be 7 little. So they're novellas. So they're thinner than my other books.
Right.
So like one of these is pretty much the same as like a big book. So, but I broke it down into age range just to kind of keep the story moving. And also it's kind of fun to see them at all different ages.
It is.
So yeah, there'll be 7 of these little trilogies.
It's almost like having bite size, and you can jump in, read a section, and then go, that was good. And if you want, you can read them all together, or you can read them all separately. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's fun because like with this one, I try to promote it in a way that you just buy all 3, because they very much read as like a continuous story.
Right.
And then people just want to start with one, and that's fine too. But you get the full story when you read all 3. So that one, I tried to I put like a rubber band around it and be like, it's one. Like it's just one.
It's just one book. It's just that it separates into bite size. Come on.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like bite size?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's part of like I think the beauty of it is that like it like when you read it, like you tear through it, because I kept it super to the point, super concise, super like heart punch, like you're getting like right to the nitty-gritty of it. And again, you're right, bite size. That's a great way to describe it. Bite size. And just kind of blow through it. But that's all my YA, my young adult content. I have adult content as well. So Hayman's is about, let me try to show you the cover. Again, this one's wrapped up in a bow. But this is about
I like that bow.
I know, it fits the vibe of the story. Very sexy Russian. But it's about a futuristic addiction that takes over Russia, turns people into superhuman monsters, and you follow the dark love story of a guy trying to save his fiance, but she doesn't want to be saved. So it's like a twist on the Anastasia Romanoff story for people who are familiar with that. And then I've got this Namate series, which is 4 books long. The other books are in the other room. But this one's about a man made of stone who finds a heart made of glass. He's used to breaking things all the time, so he's not sure what to do. And he goes on a quest to find the owner, but gets all turned around. He meets creatures from different lands and learns this glass heart might not have the best intentions. So this is very like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones in the sense of like adventure. So you watch him go on this quest, and there's like different creatures, and they all operate differently. And there's this like an earth magic, but it's not earth. So it's like their planetary magic.
Right.
But it's also a very much a human story within the fantasy. So it's all about forgiveness, and if you do a bad thing, are you a bad person? So the main character does something super awful right off the bat in this story, and then you as the reader get to decide how you feel about his redemption quest. Like, are you on board with him doing better and like, be better, man, you got this? Or are you like, nah, you're a monster. You know, like, so you get to choose how you feel about it. And that's totally cool. And as a writer, that's what awesome for me when I get the feedback where it's like, I just couldn't get on board, but man, I love the world building. Or it's like, oh, I was so rooting for him. I'm so happy, blah, 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 that he did this, that, and the other thing. And it's just kind of cool that you get very varying feedback.
I like it. It sounds to me like a good D&D quest with a twist to it, because you're starting off in a place where you probably would have ended up. So now you're starting off there and trying to get to where you need to go, especially if you're trying to redeem yourself. So, you know, are you going to become the hero or are you going to become the villain?
Yes, exactly. And so you're watching him, like, he's trying not to make the same mistakes, but then he finds himself in situations where it's like, you have a choice. Are you going to choose to do better? Or are you going to choose to repeat certain things? And I was definitely aiming for the redemption quest, but I'm very aware that because of the nature of what he does, people are going to have very strong opinions about how they feel about him. And that's totally cool. And that's why the world is an interesting and dynamic place, is because we all get to have different opinions on different topics. So that's really cool for me as a writer to like kind of present things where people then have to think and feel and decide for themselves how they're going to process it. So that's been a very interesting series for me as a writer to get feedback.
So let me ask you this, like, you know, I know sometimes you're already done, the book's done, you don't have to worry about it. But let's say you're still writing this next chapter of the book. Does what the audience say affect you, or do you just keep writing your story?
Oh, no, it totally affects me. Yeah. I've actually gone through this one because, so I had beta readers for this and they were fantastic and I got it to a much better place. And then I released it and then I realized that I had missed the mark a little bit on what I had intended to do. So the early readers, like I said, I was very much trying to build a redemption quest that made him, whether you were like his best friend or not, you at least saw the journey of doing better. And I realized after some first reads that I was like, oh my God, like how did you like so right. So the beauty of self-publishing is that you can go back and like tweak little things. Like the story is still very much the same, but I adjusted the prologue to be a little bit less holy crap. And then some of his decisions later in the book, I just altered what he did slightly just to be like more relatable and more like, yeah, man, you did the right thing, right? Whereas in the past, you know, so yeah, my readers totally affect me, and they probably shouldn't let them, but I feel like that's also part of being human, is that you learn as you go, and you can say, oh, I was a little off or I was a little wrong, let me do better. Just, I mean, granted, very different than what he does in the book, but like similar situations, like, oh yeah, I can totally do better on that. So without changing the whole story, like someone who read it on the first round and someone who read it last week would get the same story more or less, but it's just like it's those little details that like change a perception of how the storyline's progressing. So same story, but just slightly different energy, I guess, would be the.
It sounds like you got a good balance, you know, because I always go back to Star Wars, because I know what happened with Star Wars was that they had the story and then they let the audience affect the story, but they let the audience affect the story in a way where the audience changed the story too much for it to go to where it was supposed to go. I find that you're like, okay, I'm letting the audience affect me, but at the same time, I know where the story is going, and that's what I'm tweaking.
Right. Like, so for example, like I've had some people that were very jarred by what he does in the beginning, and I was like, and someone even said that it didn't even need to happen. They're like, it doesn't even need to be there. The story would be great without it. And I was like, okay, like if I was going to let them affect the story completely, I could have just taken out that chapter and had him be, and you would just kind of hear about what he did, but not see it. And I was like, I'm not changing it. I'm not completely going to cave because someone didn't like something, but I can totally respect and take the constructive criticism where I'm like, yeah, like he totally could have behaved a little different later to make it more redeemable. You know what I mean? Like, or to make it more, he's choosing to do better, you know? So it's all about the character's choices.
Oh, here's a good question. Nat says, how do you fix your stories when everyone you share it with says it's good, but you want to improve it? Ooh.
Yep, that happens too. So for example, Hall of Mosses. Everyone loved it, had no problems with it. I decided that my writing had improved in regards to just like, not the storyline, but like sentence structure and like word choice and keeping things moving at a better pace kind of deal.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I wrote this in 2016. I want to say probably in 2019, I went back to just polish it up. So I basically fixed sentence structure, polished it up. It wasn't a story change. The storyline is exactly the same, but I made it just more advanced on a writing level, I guess.
I can completely understand that. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, my audience is probably like, what's she talking about?
Yeah.
It's just times where you write something and you see it and you go, okay, cool. And then you look at it again later on and you go, if I tweak this and this and this, it won't change the story. It'll be much better.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like, again, like I started writing in 2009. So that was, God, a long time ago. And I was very young. And now I've grown and I've worked with so many editors and I've written a ton of books and I have seen the growth in my writing. And these stories are great stories. So there's no reason they have to come off the shelf because now the writing, I'm just better now. I can just go back, kind of do a quick pass to the story, spice it up a little bit, polish it up a little bit. Don't change the storyline, but just make it a little bit more legible.
Right.
In someone who really appreciates good writing can now appreciate it more versus where I'm rambling on and on about things that I could say, I say something in a paragraph, but I could say it in 2 sentences, condensed.
I know that feeling. I've done that one a couple of times. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, I said all this, I could have just said it like this, and it's
much better. And also info dumps, like that's a big thing writers especially new writers get themselves into. I was totally guilty of it. And you're just like, as a new writer, and I do it still, but I know now in editing to fix it. But, you're trying to figure out your own world, right? You're trying to figure out the world. So while you're writing, you tend to do these info dumps about the world because you're figuring it out as you write. But when you go to edit it, you don't want those info dumps in there.
Exactly.
Because the reader is going to be like, come on, like, just show me the world. Take me through the world. Don't just, explain it to me. Like, don't just like, you can be way more creative than just like a paragraph of like, this is the world. This is how it works. This is how the magic works. Here are the people, you want to slowly introduce it.
Exactly. I get you completely. It's the same problem that comic books have or movies have when you have the character doing way too much exposition.
Yes.
You're using the characters to explain the world. I'm like, no, just show the world. If you need to explain something, then explain it. If but everything is just show it. Padma says, yes, I agree, to show character growth.
Yes.
And I love Moses.
Yes.
Hold on. She says, your books hold strong female protagonists without being bratty. Do you think Juniper and the new girl book with Control of Fire would get along? Ooh, good question.
Yes, they do get along great because in this series, you meet Eshi in this series. So she's not a main character like Juniper is, but basically the way it works in the story is they're all chosen by Mother Nature to basically represent different elements of nature. So they have to then work together to save humanity. So basically they all have this power to communicate telepathically. So in Hall of Mosses, and actually I'm pretty sure up until Veil of Fire, they never actually meet in real life.
That's pretty cool.
Right. So they're communicating telepathically and they're trying to help each other. And they have this place called the White Room. And that's the one place where they can go to see each other. But it's just their like auras and their spirits that go there. So basically when they're there, they get to see each other and communicate. And yes, Juniper is definitely shaky confident. Like she's had a really rough life. And so she's, she gets chosen last, and she, as in regards to being a champion, she's the last one chosen, and she has no idea what's going on. And then Eshi, for sure, when she's in this book, she's kind of like badass. But when you see her backstory, you kind of understand why. Okay. Like she has lost so much, and she's like, I will do anything to protect the people I love, and like you guys are part of that. But like also, let's not screw around. Like let's do what we got to do, and what our assignment is. But yeah, that's what's kind of cool with the champions, that all of them are going to have such different stories. Like for example, where'd those books go? Arya, who in the Hall of Mosses story, Arya is the champion of air, and she's kind of like She's probably the sweetest of them all. Like, she's very sweet. And her story, so while, you know, you got some like very like, you know, heart-wrenching tales of survival, hers is going to be the same deal, but hers is going to be more about surviving like an illness. So I'm trying to give all these girls different types of really hard challenges to overcome. So like hers, I'm pretty sure is gonna be something along the lines of like some childhood like illness, like a leukemia or something, and how she chooses not to just, you know, lie down and take it. She's like, I'm gonna go on hikes and I'm gonna go out and be in the world. And again, it's fantasy. So like the more she seems to climb and to be out in nature, the more the air is healing her. So obviously, again, it's magic. So let's, you know, keep it in the fantasy world. But basically, through time, she you know, air heals her. So I'm trying to give each of these girls something, a super unique type of survival champion story. So that way, all girls who read the story can relate in some way or another. Like whether a child has gone through an illness or something super difficult that they've endured through, and every kid can feel like they're a champion. So,
I like what you're doing. I like the fact that each girl has their own story. It's not one thing. They're all not getting it from one place. Each one is shaped by whatever happened to them, and that's how they become. It kind of was like she seems so mellow.
Yeah, Arya seems so mellow. Yeah,
I'm guessing so. Anyway, I appreciate their tribulations because it's relatable and shows their strength. It's not typical bratty young person saving the world.
exactly. Yeah, and it's true. Like I've read a lot of YA books where you've got like a little, you know, snotty little kid who's entitled, and you're just like, okay, we get it. Like, you know, it's more of like they've been through something and now they're trying to get through it. You know, so
she says. Yeah, champion of air is mellow.
She's mellow. Yeah, she's very mellow. Yeah, she's probably the sweetest, most chill, less like I'm not going to cause conflict. Whereas all the other ones are a little bit like they push back on each other, and she's kind of like the peacekeeper.
I like what you're doing. I like how it's crafted. I like the fact that, you know, here's your book, and now you're branching out to try to fill in all the gaps. It's funny. I was just thinking about how when I see a movie, it's interesting to see the movie, but I feel like sometimes the movie, if there's too much stuff happening, I feel like if they would like to expand it into like issues or series like you're doing, it probably would fill up the characters more than the movie does.
I think you're right, and like I think like sometimes I'll watch a book adaptation into a TV series or into a movie, and it's so tough to get the full story and the full characters and the full development of these characters or storyline because they're fitting it into an hour and a half, or even the TV series, you know, they've got 12 episodes, but if you're dealing with like a meaty book like this, like you're gonna miss a lot. And it's just a shame that it's tough to, you know, you can't. It's funny. Like I'm actually writing a story right now that I think would be fantastic in a film, but as I'm writing it, I'm having a hard time because it's more about time and it's a concept where everything happens inside somebody's head. And I'm like, well, visually this would make a lot of sense, but in the writing, sometimes it's hard to keep the person along with it. Whereas in normal books that are like linear, you can put so much detail and so much about each character and about the places and about the world and the way the world works, like the magic systems. Whereas in a movie, if you have someone just like, and then the magic works like this, you know, it looks so, you know, you can't do that in a movie. You have to.
No. You want to. So, all right, guys, here's the explanation. This is how magic works in this world. I'm like, no. We're going to have to see this.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot to get into a movie, but like sometimes they get it right. Like, for example, I feel like the Harry Potter movies, they missed a ton because
they did. They missed a lot.
Yeah. But what they did good was that they captured the energy of the story. So they
did.
Yeah, when you watch the movie, even though there's details left out and there's some things that are a little different, you still feel that like, oh, I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
I feel like these characters are my friends. And like, if nothing else, like if you can capture the energy of a book in a movie, I feel like you've done a superb job. Whereas if you miss the energy and you miss all the details, it's kind of like, it's a little tougher to buy into. So that one, I feel like Hunger Games did the same thing. They had a good energy.
I feel like the perfect explanation for this is I love the Peter Jackson books. Well, not the Peter Jackson. I love the Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a great character. Yeah. It's a great character. But I feel like when they did the movie, they really messed it up.
Oh,
They lost
100%.
like you were saying, they didn't have that heart of the book. They had something else, and you're like, what's this? This is not what I read.
It almost felt like same deal. I read some of those, the first of those books, and then I watched the movie. And while the movie was visually pretty,
Yeah, it was.
and they got a lot of the things in it, yeah, there was a chemistry missing, and there was
Exactly.
a heart missing, and energy missing, and it almost felt like they were just like taking the big parts of the book, piecing it together in the movie, making it visually pretty, but like end of the day, it's not about that. That stuff's important, but it's also about the feeling that it gives you when you watch it.
Exactly.
So 100% agree. Yeah.
Let's see. And Nat has a question here. He says, how do you write your fantasy stories without making it feel like a wizard did it?
That's good. Yeah. The thing about fantasy is you have to be careful that you don't just rely on magic to solve all the problems. So you can't just be like, oh, well, let's just cast a spell and blah, blah, blah. Right. So I only have one book that has like actual magic where they're doing spells, and that's Nether Isle. And same deal. I was being very careful not to just have magic fix everything, and still causing problems that magic couldn't fix. Now with the Hall of Mosses and the Namatei series, the magic is earth magic, so it has rules. So that's a good way to answer that question, is like make sure that your world has rules. Otherwise, the reader's going to catch on that you're just solving everything with magic. Exactly. Or with a wizard, or like, let's just cast a spell and we'll move on. Also, you want to make sure your books have conflict. So if you're just solving everything with magic, where's the it's not interesting anymore, because all right, let's cast a spell, over, done with. But that was one argument with Harry Potter people had, was that there's magic. Why is there any conflict at all? Like, just use magic to fix it, and that's not interesting. So.
But it's so funny because even in Harry Potter, the one thing that's always stayed constant in any fantasy that I've read is magic has a cost.
Yes.
Right. So in Harry Potter, magic definitely has a cost. So you're gonna pay heavily for whatever you're gonna do. Right.
No, for sure. Like this one, I have it that the rules are, there's light magic and dark magic, and for light magic you have to channel light and love.
Exactly.
And then with dark magic, you're channeling, the concept, not death in the sense of like murder, but like the feeling of death and sorrow and darkness. And so you basically do one or the other. And then there's this one character trying to help blend the two, like to be able to do both. But so basically, but having rules like that helps you prevent like where something happens to someone on the dark magic side. Well, they can't channel love and light, so they can't solve it. They can't do that type of magic. So
that actually makes sense. That's a good rule.
Yeah, having rules and then having a cost, like that's so important with magic, because otherwise, yes, magic solves everything, and that's a very unappealing type of storyline where it's like, well, this is boring, So
I'm actually working with on a story now with a djinn, and I love djinns because djinns are so mischievous. And you got to be careful when you're wishing to a djinn, because you have to phrase things the right way. And I always love that aspect of it, because you're like, oh, I wish for this, and I'm like, okay, you wish for this, and I love that concept of be careful what you wish for, because you're not going to get exactly what you're wishing unless you figure out how to ask for it in a way that you're not going to get in trouble. I love that aspect.
Yes, that's so true. What's so funny about that is that, so I've seen plenty of shows with that and books with that, where it's like, the phrasing matters. So it's so funny whenever there's a full moon. I don't know if you've ever heard, like when there's full moons, you manifest what you want to happen in your life. And I'm always like, I think about that and I'm like, I better be careful how I word this. Because if I say it wrong, like I'll manifest love, but then it's like, bad love, or I'll manifest money, but it comes at a cost. Like I got to be so careful how I say what I manifest. And it's like I just think of the genies, and I'm like, oh, if you wish wrong, you'll get something you didn't ask for.
Exactly, but that's true too, because everybody always believes in manifesting, and I feel like you can manifest things to happen. And I feel like that's what happens sometimes, is we manifest something to happen and we go, why is this happening in my life? Well, that's because you manifested it to happen. And that,
it's so true. Like, and that's like a big theme I have with my writing and with everything, is like, it's all about what you put out, like what you put out. And I think it's so important that you take care with what you put out into the world, whether it's your thoughts, whether it's your words, whether it's what you create. Because it does, like, people don't realize, like, why are bad things happening to me? And like, they think they're being positive, but like, they're not possibly, you know?
Exactly. I completely agree with you. Kadma saying, what research did you do to create the depth of Ash and her life's path? Her life's past. There's so much there with her dealing with her family, looking for her family, discovering.
So Eshi, so this story, I did a lot of research. Like I do a lot of research in my books, but this one, I was watching documentaries. I was reading tons of articles. I tried reaching out to some people who have been through this personally to talk to them. That was a little harder to find, but I was trying. But yeah, so this one, I did a ton of research. I was very, for the, this book took me about like 3 to 4 months to write. During that time, I was very engulfed in, so I was basing the story off of like what was happening in the 90s in Africa. So I was diving deep into reading material and into documentaries. Like I said, like there's a really great movie. It's a fictitious movie, but it's based off of all that on is it Amazon Prime or Netflix? I'd have to figure out the name, but it was a great movie. And again, it's fictitious, but it was based off of that. So that was a great guide to use to just kind of make sure I'm on the right path with it. Because again, I have not lived through something like this. You know what I mean? I want to make sure I captured it as accurately as possible. I took great care in like, you know, picking tons of people to read the book. So that way, I was getting lots of different opinions about like the storyline and the characters. And I'm going to be doing that with all the champion stories because I want to make sure that like each girl has a story that is completely relatable and feels real. You know, I want it to feel as real as possible. So I hold myself to a very high standard with those type of things. Like I never want to screw up in that way because it's so important not to, you know. So
I completely agree with you. I'm all on research, but what writer isn't? And that's what bugs me out in this day and age when people like form their opinions and they're not researching. It bothers me. And I'm like, dude, if you just looked over here, you would find that this research says this. And that completely takes away from your argument.
Yeah, completely. And like, and that's what, you know, it's just so funny that people will just read a headline and think they know a whole topic. And like, you don't, you got to read the whole article and then then you should take it upon yourself to find articles that counter it.
Exactly.
You can see both sides and then you make your decision, you know? So
completely.
Yeah. So then it's like, so same deal with writing where it's like, you know, you want to make sure you dive in as deep as you can, especially when you're writing about a topic that's so important. When it comes to like the fantasy stuff, like that, like I'm completely making up, I'll try to take realistic things. Like this one's all about addiction. So I was like doing a lot of research on drugs and, you know, addiction recovery, loving someone through an addiction, like, you know, personal accounts. So sometimes you're doing research on like actual events.
Exactly.
And you're doing research on like the emotions of people who have gone through something. So the research varies, but yeah, with this book, I was very much diving into like actual, like, you know, journals and, you know, things that were factually based.
I completely agree with you. The fantasy that I was working on for a while, well, I'm still working on, I had to look at history, and then, you know, I created my own universe, my own world, but I had to look at history and see how that worked so that I can actually create the world that I was working on, so I can have a basis on something. That way, the audience can actually follow, because if you're just going, well, it's just magic, you know, that's going to come back to haunt you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then it's hard to keep the storyline in track, and yeah, you got to have rules and you got to have
cost. So Kadma is saying, when will the books for the other champions be ready, and who's your favorite champion?
Okay, so I'm pretty sure Marisabel, she should be done. That's the next one I'm writing. She should be done by Christmas. Fingers crossed. That's and then I think it's probably going to be like 1 book per year, most likely, because I really want to keep writing big fantasy novels. I want to keep getting the big books out. So if I write 1 of these a year plus a big book, I think that would be a good goal. So
that's pretty good, yeah.
So, and my favorite, it's tough because I haven't mapped out all their backstories right now. Honestly, I think Eshi's my favorite right now. Juniper, obviously, she's in Hall of Mosses, so I got to know her very well too. And I still got to write her backstory. And hers, I'm probably going to write last because that one is the one that has to be the most accurate leading into Hall of Mosses, because her story is already through all these. So if I don't keep her story linear with all these guys, people are going to be like, what the hell? So I'm going to tackle her last because hers is going to be the hardest to write. I'm pretty sure I'm going to fall in love with Marisabel more after I write hers. I feel like when I write each girl's backstory, I'm going to fall in love with them more. So
sense, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's the only one I've written a backstory for, so I guess right now she'd be my favorite. She might stay up on top though. Marisabel, her story is pretty compelling in my head right now. So if I portray it properly, she'll have a pretty compelling story as well.
Here's
So
a question that Cadma always asks, and I have to ask it because I personally, it's always a good question. We have our characters, we have our books, we have all these characters we're working with. What ends up happening is the character, not the main character, is one of our babies, but we'll have a character who's not the main character, who's our favorite.
Mhm.
Who do you think that is right now?
Well, in all my books, I have different people that like, so for example, like this book, the main character is Theodore. I adore him. I love him. There's a main character named Adelaide. She's an old lady and I love her too. But then there's this girl named Gretchen and she's not a big character and she's very much, but she helps Theodore, and something about her, I just like, I love her and I want to write her own story one day. So like that would Gretchen in that story probably. Let's see who else. Like my favorites. Let's see. I don't know, it's tough, but like, yeah, there's always someone in the stories where you're like, you end up writing them a bigger part than they even deserve because.
Oh my God, yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, you just love them, and that was kind of, I think, what was happening in this one was that it was Juniper's story. I love Juniper, and then as I started writing it, all the other champions started materializing, and I'm like, I love all these girls. I was like, oh my God, and that was why I went back and started writing these because I loved them so much. And I was like, how could I not give them their own story? Like, I love all these girls and they all deserve their own story. And like I think I wrote Eshe first because in this story, she was my favorite in regards to sub characters. Her, Arya, and Marisabel for sure. Those were the three. Like in book 3, Marisabel gets like a big highlight. She gets a big role in book 3 that I think just because I love her so much, I was like, oh, she needs to have something interesting happen to her here. So that was that. And also part of the problem is like, obviously in a series, characters come and go, people die, in this series, like people were really mad at me because of how I ended it. But I did it in a way where, death is not the end. So I think I did that subconsciously because I didn't want any of them to really ever go away. So basically, more or less, you live on through nature. So especially if you're a champion, not all the characters around them, but the champions. Do you know who also this book? It's such a small character, but Roscoe's dad. He's such a small character. So it's Juniper and Roscoe,
Right.
And then towards this book, and then especially Veil of Fire, they save Roscoe's dad too, and I just loved him. So him and Clark, who is the park ranger, another character that's a favorite of mine. Yes, Clark, the deputy. Clark and Roscoe's dad ended up becoming like the cutest little grandpas in this book. And I was like, I had such a fun time writing cute little grandpas. So I was just like, I just adored them and I kept giving them moments. I always make sure like, okay, they got to show up in this chapter because I miss them. I miss writing about them. So, but yeah, it is funny how like you'll totally have a love affair with some character that's not even the main point of the story.
Oh, it always bugs me out, and it's so funny because what ends up happening is you'll take that character and go, I think you deserve your own book.
Yeah,
put you over here.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm like, they need their own freaking book, and like I have, like I said, I have Marisabel and Arya mapped out. I already did Eshe. Oops, there we go. So these 3, like these 4, I think were my favorite.
Right.
And I love all these other girls too, but I'm having a harder time thinking of their stories. Everything's back.
That's how it works.
Yeah, I'm having a harder time thinking of their stories. It's not because I don't love them. I love them too, but I'm like, okay, I gotta. And then I think once I figure out their story, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I have such a better understanding of them now, and I feel like the readers will too. So
I agree with you, and that's what happens, especially as we're as creators and we're creating. You don't know if people think that your character right away. Most of the times we don't know a character until we're halfway through the story.
No, it's so true. And like I know a lot of writers who do like they'll spend months doing character development before they start writing, and everyone has their own process. Like that's not my process. I prefer to get to know them as I go. And then I can always in editing go back and build them up a little bit and make them a little stronger. But I find like getting to know them organically as you're writing, it helps. It's less forced. It's almost more natural. Like they become who they are through the story. And then again, like in editing's so important. So you can go backwards and spruce them up, make them stronger, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, that's the cool part about like when you're writing and there's times I write and characters I never planned on being in the story appear. And I'm like, oh, well, we need this person now and then I'm like, I love this person. Like, I'm so glad they just appeared in my story. And then the one thing I do is before I start writing, I do a lot of research on names. So like, for example, in this book, you know, people are made of stone, made of glass, and I wanted their names to kind of represent whatever element they were.
Right.
I have a whole list of names that mean like stone or earth or ground, a whole list of names.
That makes sense, yeah.
Crystal or glass or, you know, things like that. A whole list of names that mean metal or, you know, metal, like gold, silver, bronze. And then what that makes my life so much easier is that I can, when I'm writing and new characters pop up that I wasn't expecting, I have a list of names that I can pick from, because I will spend hours looking for a name if I don't have a reference point.
I feel you. Okay.
It's so
That's a good idea. I think I need to do that, because there's times where the character pops up and I'm like, and that stops your writing.
Well, it stops completely. It completely stops the groove and it stops the progress. And I'm like, shit, they need a name. All right, well, let me go look. And so then when before I start writing, I'll try to have a couple lists of names. Like right now I'm writing a book where I needed pirate names, I needed 1920 names, I needed, like steampunk names. And so then I can go to my list and reference it. But I can't tell you how many times I have my list, but then I still end up going and looking for names, even though I have a list of names. I'm like, I don't want to use any of these. But
or you sit there and I know the characters that sometimes have a large voice and they say, no, that is not my name.
Yeah. And you're just like, they keep talking and you're like, this feels wrong. Like they should have a much stronger name or more quirky or unique. Yeah. And give them a name. I've changed names before. I've changed names.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time. I'll be calling them something through the whole book, and then I go, no, this is your name.
Yeah. And I finish writing a book, and I'm just like, it just doesn't sit right still. And then I'll go back and change it. And then when readers are talking about it, I'm like, I still remember the first name I had used. And I'm like, who are you talking about? I'm like, oh, right, I changed his name at the last minute. Oh my God, like.
Well, that's funny because you're right. You if you change at the last minute, that means the reader's going, hey, this character, and you're like, who the heck is that? Yeah.
And I'm like, that actually happened with this book. The boy's name is Johan, but I had called Johan for most of the story. So my mom, when she read it, she was like, Johan, blah blah blah. I'm like, that's right. I know who that is. I know who that is. I wrote the book, right?
Let's see. Nat says, how do you separate and blend lore and world building with your narrative stories? Is it a conscious choice, or do you fill a separate book with rules and lore and then sprinkle it in when needed? Oh, good question.
So I do. Most of my worlds I very much build on my own, and then I try to incorporate a little bit of like actual lore. So sometimes I'm looking up like Greek mythology, or a lot of times I'm in Google Translate and I'm trying to use words like Latin words, or I'll pick, like in this series, book 2, I kept it very Icelandic. I was trying to use not in this one, but the next book, very Icelandic. So then and then when you pick a place or a culture and then you just stick with it, even if it's loosely, but you stick with it while building your own type of stuff. Like I was using certain delicacies from Iceland. Like there's like a fermented octopus that I was using for them to eat, like the little things that just kind of like give it character, and like it gives it, you can take a culture and infuse your own ideas into like, but then it makes it also relatable to human readers, even if it's a fantasy world, because like, oh, that feels like its own, culture. Yeah. But it also feels realistic because it comes from a real place. So I do a lot of blending. I do a lot of blending of my own idea, like my own world building, and then trying to take things from other places in the world and mix it in.
I completely agree with you. I feel like that's what makes it more realistic. Like you said, it gives people like a base for them to go, okay, I see this. I can believe this,
Yeah. And then it's also like, then those type of things that keeps it relatable. And it's like, and then it also helps it keep you on track of what's what and how the world works and everything. So
here we go. So Kadma says, do you think Ash has too much angst? I say that because when she discovers her abilities, she carries this supercilious air around her. And although she's willing to protect her loved ones, but it seems she has no limit to how she does it. Like the ends justify the means.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like without giving her story away too much, like she doesn't really get her abilities until where did it go? Why do I keep mistracking? So she starts seeing her abilities in this one. So towards the end of the book, her element is fire. So towards the end of the book, so she becomes very connected. So in this book, she's out running. She's just surviving in this book, really. And like fire is there, but she's not putting it together.
Right.
That fire is with her, and she's not really understanding her connection to animals either. In this book, the bus, yeah. So then in this book, this is where the bus thing happens. And she was kind of more so sacrificing her, like, so she's in fire. She realizes that like, I'm going to be okay. Like the fire is my friend. Like, I don't feel like I feel like I'm good, but then everyone around her is still struggling. So she's staying in the bus with the fire to get everybody else out. And she kind of was like being a little reckless for sure. Like she was being reckless because she's like, well, I'll survive this. I don't have any fear to get everybody. Like her cousin was still stuck in there. She had to get her out. So yeah, I would say like, just like any teenager, it's like, you think you're invincible. You know what I mean? You think you're invincible.
That's one of the problems.
Yeah. Then she realizes like towards the end of the story when she has this little rhino that she loves at the orphanage, and she goes back and forth to take care of this rhino, and there's poachers out, and that's a real thing, they're all trying to steal the horns and everything. And so they come to burn down the sanctuary, and she's there, and that's when she really understands her firepower, and she uses it, and she takes it too far. People get hurt, but it's also to save her little rhino. And I think that might be the moment that she's like, oh my God, like, wow, like I definitely like, okay, I've got something going on here that I don't really understand. And then in this book, there's a whole storyline with her mother, and her mother gets burnt, but then her mother, the fire is connected to her mother, who then has to like teach her as she gets older, like, I've been carrying this for you, but now you need to carry it, kind of deal. So, I mean, when you read the story, you kind of understand it. But yeah, there's for sure teenage angst. Again, trying to keep it real, where it's like these kids are like, they don't really understand what they have yet. And then, yeah, sometimes you take it too far. And she is really angry because of everything that's happened to her. So, the mom story is heartbreaking. Yeah, I had
I see you have a huge fan right there.
Yeah. So someone wrote a review for this story. They loved it, and they were like, they called it brutal, like brutal but beautiful. And I was like, that for me as a writer, I was like, that was basically what I was going for. Was like you have this character that like has been through so much, and of course she's gonna make mistakes along the way, and she's not gonna totally understand what she has going on. And you watch her figure out her situation.
Right.
Yeah.
So Cameron had a good question here, and I think we need to cover it because I see we've stayed in the fantasy aspect of things.
Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about my kids' books.
Well, you have more children's books like Gray Spot and Blue Spots.
Yeah, so let me show you them really quick. Yes, I have one in the works. So this is Gray Spot, about fear and learning to be brave. And you superhero girl standing up for a boy getting bullied at school. This is acceptance and loving people for who they are. So we're all different, and that makes the world beautiful.
Right.
This one is Blue Spots, embracing your learning that the sad times can make you kinder, wiser, and stronger. And Yellow Spots is on its way. So Sunny Fiend does all the illustrations for these. Right. She's currently on her last illustration, so we're almost done. That one is about gratitude. It's my response to COVID. So basically, even when the world feels like it's falling apart, there's always something to be thankful for. So that's the storyline in that one.
I've always loved your Spot books. I really feel like it's something that the world needs because, we're always covered in all the negative. And, as somebody who grew up with Mr. Rogers and that whole ability to actually get us to talk about these emotions that we didn't understand. Yeah. I feel like you're doing something good here with getting people to discuss these things that they don't get to discuss much.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's my hope, is that if nothing else, it opens up a dialogue for people. So that way, when you read it to your kids, or as an adult and you read it, it gives you an opportunity to think about these things, and to have the dialogue and to have the discussion and to bring up topics that might not have come up naturally. So you have the story, let's read it, and now we can talk about what the topic is. So yeah, exactly. Like, there's dark things in the world. There's heavy stuff, and a lot of times people will choose not to talk about it, but I think it's important to talk about those things. So, so basically I do hope that these stories, and I tend to write, like, this one came first and it was just organic, and it was like the lesson I had learned in life. And then the rest of them were very much commentaries, like bullying and just like people just being so mean to each other, and like not letting those fears define you and stop you from being your best self. And then this one is basically about acceptance and how, just there's so much division in the world. And, people, instead of celebrating our differences, people are now just like pointing it out. It's like, we're all different. That's what's awesome. That's what's great. That's what makes the world beautiful. Like, that's how it should be. And it also has a commentary on the innocence of children and how if we could see the world as they did, the world would be more kind.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I always, like, with these spots books, I'm constantly trying to, like, that's also like when I was saying before with COVID, and I felt so compelled to just be part of society. And like, I was trying to write these big novels, but I couldn't stay in it because there was just so much going on in the world. And like, I want to pay attention. I want to know what's going on.
Right.
It's important to do that too. Like, as a writer, it's so easy to get lost in your own worlds and to like not want to do anything but work on your stories. But like, you still have to have a life too. You still need to get out there and like build relationships and pay attention to what's going on in society, and like be empathetic and have a listening ear and an open mind, So yeah, that was part of last year, was a lot of like, wow, I'm like taking a lot in, and yellow spots is more or less my response.
Well, as we're talking about the spots, I think I read something where you're going to change the way you do them.
Oh yeah. So it's still up in the air. So basically right now they're hardcover books. And I love them so much, but the issue is, but the issue is that, that's what, me too. I try to have a life, but it's not.
I know, easy. Believe me, we feel you.
Yeah. Yep. But so yeah, they're all hardback books. Beautiful. I love them so much. And I would like to keep doing it that way, but I'm just realizing what an expense they are. So I'm having to like, I'm trying a couple things. Like, I'm going to start doing them in paperback. I want to see if people enjoy them that way. I don't know yet if that'll be a long-term thing. I just printed these in paperback, Gray Spots. So I'm going to bring them to Orlando. I'm going to see if people like them.
Yeah.
What happens. If it turns out that like people see paperback and then they see these hardcovers and everyone's going for hardcover, I'm going to have to rethink and just see like, all right, I got to figure out a way to do it. I think I might have to stop doing combo deals on them. There's like a couple of things I'm going to have to start. Yeah, I like the hardcovers too. Yeah. I think I'm going to have to probably stop doing combo deals, start just charging the full price all the time for them, because every time I need to order new hardcover books, I spend thousands of dollars, like multiple thousands of dollars. Like, they cost so much money, and cost per book is a lot. So that's kind of, and I don't really want to charge my readers a ton of money for these books. So it's just a dilemma I've been facing for actually quite a few years now. And it came to a point where I needed to order new books, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it right now. So
I only mention it because as a collector, my brain goes, wait a minute, buy the hardcovers now.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Cause like I probably have like these ones, I have a decent amount left for now. When I go to Orlando, I'll start running out of those. But this one, I've got maybe like 15 left in hardcover. So I'm just like, if you want them, get them. I'm not saying they're gone forever, but like just in case they are,
you might as well buy them now. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I saw you said this, and I was like, as a collector, my brain is going, get them now, get them all.
Yeah, and part of it is also like, it might be nice to do collector's editions for people. Also, like these books, like you've seen them in person, they're a little hard to show on the video, but like they have this like beautiful, like it's like almost like a cross stitch type of hardcover.
Yeah,
they're different than most.
Amazing. It's really hardcover. It's not like some people say they're hardcover and they're not.
Yeah, and that exactly. That was my other concern was that like I could do other printers with hardcover, but then you're sacrificing quality.
Exactly.
So not only with the cover, but even the inside pages. Like I have shopped so many printers to try to like save the hardcover, and the problem is then on the inside the pages are super flimsy and thin. So even if the outside is nice, the inside, the pages are just like see-through or like not, they're not thick pages. So I'm like, all right, I don't really want to sacrifice quality. So I'm just going to see how paperback does. And if people are still more into the hardbacks, I'm just going to probably just stop doing combo deals and just charge what I got to charge for them. And then that would be the way that I'm able to keep them.
That makes sense. And I do like your hardcovers because, like you said, they are quality. And they remind me of the old days when you would get the hardcover books, and these were these books that you actually passed down from generation to generation because that's how good they were.
Right, exactly. And they last longer, especially if you have kids around them. You know, you got the thank you. But yeah, if you have
they are worth the money.
Thank you. But you have kids around, you don't want kids ripping the covers. Like, this keeps the inside pages a little safer when they have the hardback.
Right.
I have had this like internal debate, and me and my mom talk about it all the time, where I'm like, I can't spend $5,000 on books right now. Like, I just can't do it. Like, it doesn't make sense. But then I'm also like, I know everyone wants the hardback. So
yeah. And they sell well too, right?
Yeah, they do. So that's the thing. Well, the problem was, I think the reason I'm having issues right now is because, 2019, I had tons of shows and it was all good. 2020, I had thousands of dollars worth of books sitting in my basement, just sitting there. Because I have online sales, but it's not the same as shows.
No, it's not. It's not the same thing. No. The reason you do the shows is because it gets your name out there and you actually sell a lot of product at the shows.
Yes, exactly. And like, you're at the show and like you're at 3 to 4 days at a show, books are flying out, right?
Exactly.
Online, sure, I'm selling stuff, but you're not getting a full weekend, 10-hour days of just books getting off your shelves.
Exactly.
So yeah, I had so much money sitting in my basement that I'm like, unless shows really pick back up again, I don't know that I can justify buying, because you have to buy a lot of books at a time.
Exactly. That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, to get the cost down on like per unit. And so I'm like, unless I can get back at the shows once a month, I don't know how I can justify having, 500 to 1,000 of these books sitting in my basement for a whole 1 to 2 years again. So we'll see. I mean, maybe if the shows really kick back up with everything, reopening, that might change the whole print thing, but we'll see. And then I thought about going overseas. Like, I currently print in Nebraska, and they're really fantastic printers. And I love, staying in the US, but then I was like looking at China, and I'm like, maybe I print from China. But then there's the whole, I'm not a last minute person, but like with China, you have to have, you have to know 3 months in advance that you need them, basically, because of shipping. So like,
right. Yeah. Because you need to get home. Yeah. There's a lot of work.
So it's just a shipping process. And it's like, I'm like, oh my God, like I usually, a month ahead of time, like I need these, and like my printer here can do that like in a month advance. Whereas like if I'm going overseas, I gotta know 3 months in advance, and like I don't plan more than a month in advance. I mean, for God's sakes, I was trying to plan this video, was like, I'm like,
yeah, but that's the other thing, sometimes you don't know what's happening with the shows until you do the shows,
right?
And then you know what's happening.
Right, yeah. So then I'm just like, okay, well, it's easier for me to plan like 2 weeks to a month out. It's easier to plan. But yeah, so I have lots of stuff. So I'm seeing, like sell to schools. Like, I've done some school readings where I offer like the option to like buy the books, and like the problem is with the schools, those all shut down too. I couldn't do any readings this past year, and I did some great readings in the years prior, right, where the teachers have order forms and they bring them home to the parents. The kids.
Oh, that's cool.
Like when I show up, like I can sign the book for the kid in person. The kids get so excited, and it's really cute. But then again, with all the schools being virtual, I did a couple Zooms, and they're like, a lot of times the parents will buy the book after the reading, and the parents are not checked into the Zooms at all. Like they don't know.
Not at all. No.
So like I would do the readings, and then it wouldn't really turn into anything. And I was like, I don't mind doing the readings. That's fine. But it definitely wasn't the same as being at a school where the teachers can email the parents and talk to them, and the kids can go home and be excited because they got to like, on Zoom, there's a disconnect, right? Right. Whereas when you're in the school, the kids,
it's like, right there. It's more ethereal. Everything's happening. Yeah.
And the kids are like coming up to you, and they want to like hug you, or they want to talk to you and ask you a million questions. And when they see you sign the books for other kids, like, I want one too, So it just works better that way. And like for me, just as a person, I like being in person too, because I get so much more out of like actually getting someone's energy in real life. So same with the kids. Like I just like love seeing the kids in person, because it just like reinvigorates my spirit. It just is great. So
I completely agree with you. let's see. Yes, children can be respectful in the aspect because they naturally try to understand the world around them, opposed to when people get older and not everyone keeps that with them.
Yeah. It might be about purple spots. Yeah.
Yeah, it was about the purple spots. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about the spots. I saw that was there. I was like, we need to get to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and what's nice is like the whole story, it starts off with a young boy that sees the world with all its color and all its beauty. And then as you watch him grow up, and then he hears things from the TV and the media and like adults fighting around him. And then he starts to wonder like, oh, he starts to see things differently because of what he hears. Then he grows up and he starts losing all the color. But then when he has a daughter, he's a grown man now. He has his own daughter, and his daughter teaches him how to see the world with love again, and how to see people and to be accepting. But,
okay, Cadma. Okay. She goes, no, Nicoline sees me. Don't worry, Ralph.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's basically the premise. Is like, yes, children are just so pure and they're so innocent, and like, why can't we just hold on to that? You know, as humans, like, why can't we just be,
I wish, yeah.
Regardless of just the way we like view other people and how we treat other people, it's like there's no discrimination and there's no hate and there's no judgment. It's just like, oh, okay, that's how you are. That's how you are. Cool. Let's be friends. Awesome. You know, like.
It's so funny. Like I watch my daughter and it's like, oh, she's my friend. I'm like, you just met her.
Yeah.
Oh, but she's my friend. I'm like, okay, wow, that's so easy.
Yeah, so easy and just so simple, and there doesn't
Exactly.
have to be so complicated. Yeah, exactly. So.
Matt says, should I drop the other interviews into the links? Yeah, Matt, drop those in there. They can see the other interviews we've had with Nicoline. There's been some.
Oh, like in the past?
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen any of those. I would love to see those.
He's gonna drop them in the comment section. So if you want, you can see them too.
All right, yeah, I'll copy and I'll watch them later. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I've done, it's so funny. I've done so many like little interviews at the Comic-Cons, and I feel like I rarely ever get to see them. Like I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do one. That's awesome. Can't wait. And then like I don't know what, like I'm just like I've seen like one or two of them. I'm like, oh.
And that's like, I wish I made friends that fast.
Yeah, you gotta channel your inner 5-year-old and just everyone's my friend.
Oh my God, yeah, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. All right, so have we covered all the books?
Yes. The only other one is my other poetry book.
There we go.
That poetry book is my only other one. This was the hardest thing I've ever published because it was poetry I wrote from like 2005 until 2009 or 10, and I thought it would never see the light of day. And then I decided, I was like, you know what? I bet you there's people out there who need this. It's pretty dark, but there's probably someone out there that's going to feel less alone when they read it. So I published it. People love it, and it was terrifying though. It was really scary.
I can imagine. I know when Cadma published her poetry, she was like, nobody's gonna read this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, and her stuff is kind of dark too as well. So she's like, nobody's gonna read this. It's gonna be too dark. They're not gonna like it. And then she started getting comments on the books, and she started going, somebody's reading this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like I was like, okay, I'll publish it, and I mean, it's not my bestseller by any means, but people will read it. When they do read it, they reach out and they're like, whoa, you know, like, I'm like, yes, whoa is right. But
see, Cadma says it, there's light and darkness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she also said, I have kid book ideas for you. Not sure if it fits your style, but I'll send you a separate message later.
Cool. I'll be looking forward to that. Awesome. Perfect.
Oh, she says also, Dark Soul Besties.
Yeah.
All right, so as we're wrapping things up here, what's your last word to all the people out there and your books? Because I know they're amazing books and I think they should get them. But what's your last pitch here?
I guess I would say, like, one, if you like fantasy, for sure, like everything's fantasy. But if you like, I tend to write a lot more heavy than I realize. A lot of my reviews come back, it's like, whoa, that was heavy, but don't ever change. Like, keep writing this way. So even when I don't realize I'm doing it, my stuff tends to have like heavy undertones or dark undertones or just something that like is like, it makes you feel something. So if you like reading and you like feeling something, and I write in a way that's meant to entertain. So like I write fast. I try to keep it fast paced, moving forward. So if you like any of those type of concepts or types of like, you know, writing styles where it's fast paced, it makes you feel something, it makes you think. I have a lot of stories that will make you think. Then my stuff might be right for you.
Well, there you have it. Yeah. And where can they find you? Where can they hit you up? You know, Give us all the stuff.
All the stuff. Okay, so all my social media handles are at Nicoline Novels. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I just started a TikTok. It's not very good yet. I'm trying to figure out how to work that. I feel like we were talking about technology earlier. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
What surprises me is how many writers are on TikTok. That bugs me out. when I got onto TikTok, I was like, there's a bunch of writers on here.
Yeah, there's a lot. And I'm realizing like I've been kind of so far, I've been putting my Instagram content, at least the videos, onto TikTok.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but it's not working like I thought it would. Because on Instagram, everything's great. Like I've kind of figured out Instagram. But now I'm realizing TikTok is completely different. And I need to, I'll figure it out eventually, but I got to figure out.
Well, you do the readings for the spots for your kids, right?
I do. Well, I do the spot readings for like schools and like my event.
So maybe you can do it for the TikTok.
Yeah, I could do that. I could try that. I almost think I got to like, I feel like it's on Instagram. I do my books and my adventures and all my stories. Like all my stories, sometimes I'll be silly and weird. Right. And I kind of think that on TikTok, I need to just be silly and weird all the time. I think yeah, TikTok is a completely different monster. Yeah, 1000%. And I'm realizing my Instagram content doesn't translate the same over there. Whereas Instagram's very curated. Whereas TikTok, they just want real, they want raw, they want authentic. So I kind of think I need to just start opening it up and just be like a fucking weirdo. Like just be my weird, quirky self. And I think that would probably work for me better than what I've been doing.
Believe me, I completely understand, because when I'm on TikTok and I'm doing my TikTok stuff and I do the stupid stuff, that's when they go, hey, Ralph, we like that. I'm like, what?
That's that's what they want, funny and weird, and just be authentic. They want authentic. And I think that's so cool too, in a way. It's kind of refreshing. Whereas, you know, on Instagram and Facebook, okay, yeah, sweet. We'll do some duets, but like on everything's so curated on those other platforms. Whereas this one, it's like it's kind of refreshing. Like I can just be myself, but I need to just start doing that, because right now I'm like I've been just copying and pasting my content. Whereas like I might need to take some time to actually make some original stuff for TikTok. So
I think it's one of the. It's funny. It's such a short, because it's only like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a minute. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, I think if I remember right. I know they're trying to extend it to 3 minutes, but it's almost a lot of it. Besides all the lip stuff out there, a lot of it seems to be more about original content than it does about anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's about like whether I was kind of thinking maybe I start whatever the trends are that are going on, like take a trend and make it about writing, or like make it about whatever, or maybe I just don't. Sometimes, sometimes the people that are most successful, like I'm there, like I have my books and my author stuff. That's what I'm trying to like get across. But sometimes when you make it completely about something else, they'll be like, oh, she's so funny or cool, or I like her stuff. And they're like, what else does she do? So it's like, but I'm just not sure if like I started doing my YouTube channel, and I think my YouTube channel is a lot of fun. I'm like, well, maybe if I kind of translate what I do on YouTube over into TikTok, where it's like, here I am on an adventure and here's my thoughts for the day, and then people will, I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I got to figure it out.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm right there with you. If Camel's going to help you, let them give you some. She's been duetting some of my stuff with me too.
Okay.
I started doing like this do your own adventure type story. And I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to do the story. You guys are going to throw things at me, and I'm going to keep creating the story as we go. I'm like, okay, I'm having fun with it. Let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's a matter of like, it's always, I feel like on TikTok, it's always the video that you were like, oh, whatever, I'll post it. Like and it has nothing to do with anything. And that's the one that everyone's like interested in. And you're like, of course, it's not the one that I'm like targeting, trying to have do well. So I think if I just start like taking little 15-second random videos of whatever my thought is for the day, maybe.
That might work too.
I know. Half the battle is that like I like look like a hot mess most of the time. I'm just like in my pajamas and my hair's like this, and I'm just like writing, and I'm like, I don't want to take videos of myself right now.
What's funny is that that'll probably be what hits for you.
That's what'll work. It's literally when I'm just like glasses on, just like, and I'm like say whatever I'm thinking. That's gonna be the one that everyone freaking loves. And I'm like,
exactly.
Right, well. And that's actually it's kind of cool. You don't have to worry so much on TikTok, I feel
exactly. Like. So there you have it, guys. Check her up on all her social medias. Nicoline's books are amazing. You really want to get some of these, read them. Find her at the cons. What's your next con?
So MegaCon in Orlando, and then I'm doing an art show up in New Paltz again, and then New York Comic Con.
Well, there you have it. You can actually go meet her in person. Get the books. You won't regret it. There's a bunch of interviews I think Nat put into the links in there on the comments. So there's so much you can check out. Just go check out Nicoline. Don't be afraid. Her books are fantastic. Her spots are amazing. Just go check it out, man. You don't have nothing to lose and much, much to gain. And Cadmus says, we love you, Nicoline.
I love you guys too. You guys are the best. I'm so happy I got to see you virtually. And hopefully we'll see each other at a show soon again too.
With that, I will say good night or good day, my friends. And I'll see you later tonight when we do the late write.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Goodbye, guys. And let's see how